Using the limited supplies he had, Ned cleaned and bandaged the wound. As he worked, the alien woman stirred, her luminous eyes fluttering open. She looked at him, her gaze sharp despite her weakened state. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice musical yet strained. "Ned," he replied, trying to sound reassuring. "Just a guy who had a bad landing." "You?" She hesitated, then said, "Tina, you helped me?" "Yeah," he said with a small smile. Seemed like the right thing to do. Her eyes softened, and she reached out to touch his hand. The moment their skin made contact, a surge of energy shot through Ned's body, leaving him breathless. The faint hum he'd felt in the ground intensified, resonating in his chest. "What the hell was that?" he asked, pulling back. Tina's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and something deeper. "You formed the bond." "Bond?" Ned echoed, his brow furrowing. "It is a sacred connection," Tina explained, her voice trembling. "By saving me, you have tied your essence to mine. We are linked now." Ned blinked, trying to process her words. "Linked? Like forever?" She nodded, her gaze steady. "Yes. And in my culture, such a bond can only be fulfilled through union, through marriage." Ned opened his mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a sharp sound, a distant explosion that echoed through the crystalline landscape. "What was that?" he asked, already reaching for his sidearm. Tina's expression darkened. "Pirates. They come to strip the crystals from this planet, destroying everything in their path. We must stop them." Using the limited supplies he had, Ned cleaned and bandaged the wound. As he worked, the alien woman stirred, her luminous eyes fluttering open. She looked at him, her gaze sharp despite her weakened state. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice musical yet strained. "Ned," he replied, trying to sound reassuring. "Just a guy who had a bad landing." "You?" She hesitated, then said, "Tina, you helped me?" "Yeah," he said with a small smile. Seemed like the right thing to do. Her eyes softened, and she reached out to touch his hand. The moment their skin made contact, a surge of energy shot through Ned's body, leaving him breathless. The faint hum he'd felt in the ground intensified, resonating in his chest. "What the hell was that?" he asked, pulling back. Tina's expression shifted, a mix of surprise and something deeper. "You formed the bond." "Bond?" Ned echoed, his brow furrowing. "It is a sacred connection," Tina explained, her voice trembling. "By saving me, you have tied your essence to mine. We are linked now." Ned blinked, trying to process her words. "Linked? Like forever?" She nodded, her gaze steady. "Yes. And in my culture, such a bond can only be fulfilled through union, through marriage." Ned opened his mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a sharp sound, a distant explosion that echoed through the crystalline landscape. "What was that?" he asked, already reaching for his sidearm. Tina's expression darkened. "Pirates. They come to strip the crystals from this planet, destroying everything in their path. We must stop them." Ned and Tina moved quickly, making their way through the shimmering terrain toward the source of the explosion. As they approached, they saw a group of heavily armed pirates setting up mining equipment near one of the crystal spires. "These crystals," Tina whispered, her voice filled with anger, "are not just resources. They are part of a vast network that connects countless worlds. If the pirates harvest them, they will sever that connection." Ned frowned, gripping his weapon. "So we stop them." Tina hesitated. "You do not understand. The bond we share, it gives us power. Together, we can wield the energy of the crystals, but only if you trust me." Ned glanced at her, then back at the pirates. "I just met you, but I've got a feeling you know what you're doing. Let's give it a shot." As the pirates worked, Ned and Tina approached from opposite sides, using the terrain to their advantage. Tina placed her hands on one of the smaller crystals, her body glowing as the energy flowed through her. Ned felt it too, a surge of power that sharpened his senses and steadied his aim. When the pirates noticed them, it was already too late. Ned's shots were precise, his movements fluid as if guided by an unseen force. Tina, meanwhile, used the crystals to create barriers and disorient their enemies with flashes of light. The battle was short but intense, and by the end, the pirates were either subdued or fleeing. "You're not bad in a fight," Ned said, catching his breath. Tina smiled faintly. "It is the bond. We are stronger together." After the battle, Tina led Ned to a hidden sanctuary, a massive crystal cave that pulsed with a soft, rhythmic light. She explained that the energy of the crystals had already begun to change him, aligning his essence with hers. "You are becoming Orion," she said, her voice quiet. "It is a gradual process, but it cannot be undone." Ned stared at his hands, noticing faint patterns of light appearing on his skin. "So, what happens when it's complete?" "You will be one of us," Tina said, "a guardian of the crystal network. It is a great responsibility, but also a great honor." Ned sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Guess I don't have much of a choice, do I?" Tina stepped closer, her gaze steady. "You saved my life, and now you share in my destiny, but the choice to embrace it is yours." Ned met her eyes, and despite everything, felt a sense of calm. "All right," he said. "Let's do this. Let me know if you'd like me to continue this story into deeper chapters, building up toward the climactic battle and their ultimate transformation." The sanctuary became their refuge. Ned spent days recovering from the crash and adjusting to the bond with Tina. The changes in his body were subtle at first, enhanced strength, heightened awareness, but they grew stronger with each passing day. Tina guided him through the process, her voice patient as she explained the nature of the crystals and their power. "These crystals," she said, gesturing to the shimmering walls of the sanctuary, "are alive in their own way. They resonate with the energy of the universe, connecting all life. The bond we share allows us to tap into that energy. So, I'm some kind of crystal-powered warrior now?" Ned asked, his tone half joking. Tina smiled faintly. "In time, you will be more than that. The transformation is not just physical, it is spiritual. To fully harness the crystal's power, you must embrace their purpose." "And what's that?" Ned pressed. "Balance," Tina said simply. "The crystals exist to maintain harmony between worlds. Without them, chaos spreads." Ned nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. "All right, teach me." Under Tina's guidance, Ned began to understand the crystal's intricacies. He learned to channel their energy, creating barriers of light and enhancing his reflexes. The bond between him and Tina grew stronger, allowing them to communicate without words, a shared understanding that transcended language. But with power came pain. The transformation pushed Ned's body to its limits, his human physiology struggling to adapt. Tina stayed by his side, her presence a calming force as he endured the changes. "You are stronger than you know," she told him one night as he rested in the sanctuary. "Few could endure what you are going through." "Guess I'm just stubborn," Ned said with a weak grin. Tina's gaze softened. Stubbornness is a strength if used wisely. Their peace was shattered when a second wave of pirates arrived, this time in greater numbers. These raiders were better equipped, armed with technology designed to neutralize the crystal's power. The sanctuary trembled as their ships descended, the hum of the crystals turning discordant. "We can't let them take the crystals," Tina said, her voice urgent. "If they succeed, they will disrupt the entire network." Ned stood, his body still aching from the transformation, but his resolve unshaken. "Then let's stop them." Together they left the sanctuary and confronted the invaders. Tina used her deep connection to the crystals to create shields and disorient their enemies, while Ned relied on his growing abilities to fight with precision and strength. The battle was fierce, the pirates relentless, but the bond between them gave them an edge. By the time the last pirate ship retreated, the ground was littered with smoking debris. Ned leaned against a crystal spire, catching his breath. "Think that's the last of them?" he asked. "For now," Tina replied, her gaze scanning the horizon. "But they will return." As they repaired the damage to the sanctuary, Ned and Tina grew closer. The bond they shared wasn't just a matter of necessity, it had become something deeper. Tina's once reserved demeanor softened, and Ned found himself opening up in ways he hadn't in years. One evening, as they sat by a glowing pool of crystal water, Tina spoke quietly. "I never thought I would find someone like you, Ned." "Like me?" Ned asked, raising an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "Someone who sees me for who I am," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not just a guardian or a warrior. Just Tina." Ned smiled, his hand resting on hers. "Guess you're stuck with me then." She looked at him, her silver eyes shimmering. "Perhaps that is not such a bad thing." Ned's transformation accelerated, his body adapting more fully to the crystal's energy. His skin began to take on a faint luminescence, and his senses sharpened to an almost unnatural degree. Tina explained that this was the final stage of his transition into an Orion. "You are becoming one with the crystals," she said, watching as his hand left faint trails of light in the air. "When the transformation is complete, you will be fully attuned to their power." "And what happens then?" Ned asked. "Then," Tina said, her expression solemn, "you will be a guardian." The pirates returned in force, their ships darkening the sky as they descended upon the planet. This time, they brought advanced machinery designed to strip the crystals from the ground, ignoring the damage it caused to the delicate ecosystem. Ned and Tina stood together at the edge of the sanctuary, their bond now so strong that they moved as one. The crystals responded to their presence, glowing brighter and resonating with a powerful hum. "We have to protect the heart of the network," Tina said, pointing to a massive crystal spire in the distance. "If it falls, the entire system will collapse." "Then let's make sure it doesn't," Ned said, gripping a crystalline blade that Tina had fashioned for him. The battle was unlike anything Ned had ever experienced. The bond between him and Tina allowed them to fight with perfect coordination, their combined power overwhelming the pirates at every turn. The ground shook as the crystals pulsed with energy, amplifying their abilities and forcing the invaders back. When the dust settled, the planet was safe, for now. With the pirates defeated, Ned and Tina turned their attention to rebuilding the sanctuary. The transformation had changed not only Ned's body but also his perspective. He no longer thought of himself as a lone pilot. He was part of something greater. "Tina," he said one evening as they worked, "what's next? Do we just stay here and guard this place forever?" Tina smiled faintly. "Perhaps not forever, but for as long as we are needed." Ned nodded, a sense of peace settling over him. "I think I can live with that." The days following the pirates' retreat were filled with quiet rebuilding. Ned and Tina worked tirelessly to restore the balance of the crystal network, repairing the damage done to the ecosystem. The bond between them was now unshakable, their movements synchronized, and their thoughts often aligned without words. Tina guided Ned to the heart of the sanctuary, a massive, glowing crystal spire that radiated energy throughout the planet and beyond. It pulsed gently as they approached, its light growing brighter with each step. "This is the Nexus," Tina explained, her voice reverent. "It is the core of the crystal network, connecting countless worlds. It is our duty to protect it." Ned reached out, his hand brushing the crystal's surface. A surge of energy coursed through him, filling him with a sense of connection he had never experienced before. He could feel the pulse of the network, the lives it touched, and the harmony it maintained. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "It is life," Tina replied. "And now, it is a part of you." Just as peace seemed to settle over the planet, Tina received a warning from the crystals. The pirates had not given up. They had aligned themselves with a larger galactic faction, one far more dangerous. This new enemy was determined to seize the Nexus and exploit its power for domination. "They are coming," Tina said, her voice tense as she relayed the warning to Ned. "How many?" Ned asked, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his crystalline blade. "Too many for us to face alone," she admitted. "Even with the power of the Nexus." Ned frowned, his mind racing. "Then we call for help." Tina hesitated. "The Council may intervene, but they will demand something in return. They are not altruistic." Ned nodded. "We'll deal with that when the time comes. Right now, we need to make sure this planet doesn't fall." Using the Nexus, Tina and Ned sent a message through the crystal network, reaching out to other guardians and allies across the galaxy. The response was slow at first, but eventually ships began to arrive. Smaller factions, independent fighters, and even a few rogue elements from the Council who believed in the cause. Among the arrivals was an Orion elder named Vera, whose presence commanded respect. She approached Tina and Ned with a stern expression, her crystalline form radiating authority. "You have done well to protect the Nexus," Vera said, her voice like a low hum. "But the battle ahead will test you in ways you cannot imagine." "We're ready," Ned said firmly, his hand gripping Tina's for reassurance. Vera's gaze softened slightly. "The bond you share is rare. It will serve you well." The enemy arrived in overwhelming force, their massive fleet darkening the skies above the planet. The combined forces of the Guardians and their allies held their ground, but the battle was brutal. Energy pulses lit up the landscape, and the air vibrated with the hum of clashing power. Ned and Tina fought at the forefront, their bond allowing them to wield the crystal's energy with unparalleled precision. Together, they created barriers to protect their allies, struck down invaders with bursts of light, and used the terrain to their advantage. Despite their efforts, the enemy pressed closer to the Nexus, their advanced weaponry threatening to destabilize the entire network. "They're breaking through," Tina shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "Not if we stop them," Ned replied, his determination unwavering. As the battle raged, the Nexus began to glow more intensely, its light spreading across the planet. Tina placed her hands on its surface, her expression one of deep concentration. "It's calling to us," she said, her voice trembling. "It wants to help." Ned joined her, his hands covering hers. The Nexus pulsed in response, its energy flowing through them and spreading to the allies around them. The battlefield lit up as the crystals across the planet resonated with the Nexus, creating a unified force that overwhelmed the invaders. The enemy fleet faltered, their ships retreating under the sheer power of the network. By the time the last ship vanished into the sky, the planet was quiet once more. The battle had pushed Ned to his limits, and as the dust settled, the final stage of his transformation began. His body glowed with a faint crystalline light, his human features blending with the Orion traits he had adopted. Tina watched in awe as he completed the process, his form now fully attuned to the Nexus. "How do you feel?" Tina asked, her voice soft. Ned looked at his hands, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Like I finally belong." Tina stepped closer, her silver eyes shimmering. "You are one of us now, Ned, a guardian, and I couldn't have done it without you," he said, pulling her into a warm embrace. With the planet safe and their roles as guardians secured, Tina suggested one final journey to Earth. Ned hesitated at first, unsure of how his family would react to his transformation and his bond with Tina. But he knew he couldn't keep his new life from them. When they landed on Earth, Ned's parents were overwhelmed, but ultimately accepting. Tina's radiant presence and the bond she shared with Ned spoke volumes, and it didn't take long for them to welcome her into the family. As they sat around the dinner table, sharing stories and laughter, Ned felt a sense of completeness he hadn't known was possible. Months later, Tina revealed that she was carrying their child, a being who would embody both human and Orion traits. The news brought joy to Ned's family and a renewed sense of purpose to the couple. "Our child will be a bridge between worlds," Tina said, her voice filled with hope. "A symbol of what we can achieve together." Ned smiled, his hand resting gently on hers. "Then we'll make sure they're ready for whatever the galaxy throws at them." Ned and Tina returned to the Nexus, now fully embracing their roles as guardians. Together, they protected the crystal network, ensuring balance across the galaxy. Their bond remained unbreakable, their love a source of strength in the face of any challenge. And as their child grew, they passed on the lessons they had learned, the importance of connection, resilience, and the power of unity. Under the glowing light of the Nexus, Ned and Tina stood together, ready to face whatever the future held. For they were not just guardians, they were a family, and their story was only just beginning. The Nexus pulsed softly, casting its radiant glow across the sanctuary. Ned and Tina stood hand in hand, gazing at the crystals, now stable and humming with a soothing resonance. The quiet peace they had fought for was finally within their grasp. But their journey was far from over. Their child, a unique blend of human and Orion, began to grow quickly within Tina. Unlike human pregnancies, the bond with the Nexus accelerated the child's development, drawing on the energy of the crystal network. Tina spent hours meditating near the Nexus, allowing the crystals to strengthen and guide her through the process. One evening, as Ned sat beside her, he felt a faint pulse of energy, like a heartbeat, resonate through the air. "Do you feel that?" he asked, placing his hand on Tina's. She nodded, her silver eyes shimmering with joy. "It is the child. They are already attuning to the crystals." Ned smiled, overwhelmed by the gravity of their shared journey. "They're going to be something special, aren't they?" Tina turned to him, her expression tender. "They are the future, a symbol of what is possible when we bridge worlds." Despite the peace they had won, the galaxy was not without dangers. Whispers of unrest began to reach the Nexus, a rogue faction of galactic empires seeking to exploit the crystal network for their own gain. These empires saw the crystals as a source of limitless energy, ignoring their deeper purpose of maintaining balance. One day, Vera, the elder Orion who had guided them during the battle with the pirates, arrived at the sanctuary with urgent news. "The empires are mobilizing," Vera said, her crystalline form glinting in the Nexus's light. "They have discovered fragments of the network on other worlds and are attempting to harness its power." Ned frowned, his grip tightening on the hilt of his crystalline blade. "What does that mean for us?" Vera's gaze darkened. "If they succeed, the balance will collapse. The network is not designed for selfish exploitation. It will retaliate, and countless worlds will suffer." Tina stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "Then we must act. The Nexus cannot remain passive." Vera nodded. "You and Ned are uniquely positioned to lead this fight. The bond you share with the crystals makes you the strongest guardians we have." Ned exchanged a glance with Tina, a mix of determination and resolve passing between them. "Looks like we've got work to do." The sanctuary became a hub of activity as allies from across the galaxy rallied to their cause. Guardians, independent fighters, and even defectors from the galactic empires joined forces, united by the threat to the crystal network. The sanctuary buzzed with the hum of preparations, ships being repaired, strategies being debated, and weapons being honed. Ned and Tina trained tirelessly, pushing their bond to new heights. Together, they learned to amplify the Nexus's power, creating fields of energy that could shield entire fleets and disrupt enemy technology. Ned's transformation into an Orion was now complete, his body fully attuned to the crystals. He moved with a fluid grace that belied his human origins, his glowing form a symbol of the unity they fought to protect. During a quiet moment, Tina placed a hand on her growing abdomen, her expression thoughtful. "Our child will inherit this fight," she said softly. "I hope we can give them a galaxy worth protecting." "We will," Ned said firmly, wrapping an arm around her. Together. The final confrontation began when the rogue empires launched a coordinated assault on the crystal network. Massive fleets descended on key nodes across the galaxy, their weapons designed to shatter the crystals and disrupt their energy. Ned and Tina led the charge, their forces striking back with precision and unity. The Nexus served as their command center, its vast power allowing them to coordinate with allies on distant worlds. The battle was chaos, fleets clashing in orbit, energy beams tearing through the darkness, and ground forces fighting desperately to protect the crystal spires. Ned and Tina fought side by side, their bond allowing them to anticipate each other's movements and wield the crystal's energy with devastating precision. At the height of the battle, the enemy launched a massive weapon aimed directly at the Nexus. The device, a supercharged energy disruptor, threatened to destabilize the entire network. "We can't let that thing fire," Ned said, his voice grim as he surveyed the battlefield. Tina nodded, her gaze steady. "Then we stop it, together." Months later, Tina gave birth to their child, a radiant being who embodied the harmony of their bond. The child's presence brought a renewed sense of hope to the sanctuary, their laughter filling the crystalline halls with warmth. Ned and Tina named the child Alara, a name that symbolized unity and balance. As Alara grew, they showed an innate connection to the crystals, their abilities surpassing even those of their parents. Under the guidance of the Nexus, Ned, Tina, and Alara prepared for their roles as the protectors of the Crystal Network. Together, they stood as a family, a beacon of hope in a galaxy that often teetered on the edge of chaos. Years passed, and the sanctuary became a symbol of peace and resilience. Visitors from across the galaxy came to learn from Ned, Tina, and Alara, drawn by their story and the power of the Crystal Network. Standing together under the glow of the Nexus, the family watched as the galaxy moved toward a fragile but hopeful future. "We've come a long way," Ned said, his voice filled with quiet pride. "And we have much farther to go," Tina replied, her gaze steady. Alara, now a young guardian in their own right, smiled. "Together we can face anything," and under the eternal light of the Nexus, they did. Ned Harrison adjusted the straps on his survival pack, his eyes scanning the alien landscape around them. The towering crystal spires seemed to hum faintly, their energy vibrating in the air. Beside him, Tina, the alien researcher he'd rescued, moved with a quiet grace. Her silver hair shimmered under the planet's dual suns, and her luminous skin glowed faintly. "We need to move quickly," Tina said, her voice calm but urgent. "The hunters will not give up after their last defeat." Ned nodded, his grip tightening on his makeshift crystal blade. "You sure this network of yours can stop them for good?" "It can," Tina replied, glancing at him. "But it will require complete synchronization. The crystal's power is vast but unstable if not properly channeled." Ned raised an eyebrow. "And by synchronization, you mean this bond thing we've got going?" Tina hesitated before nodding. "Yes. The energy between us strengthens the crystal's connection. Without it, the network will collapse under the hunter's next assault." Ned exhaled, his gaze lingering on her. "Then let's make sure it doesn't come to that." The journey to the core of the crystal network was treacherous. The terrain grew more unstable as they approached the central spire, the energy emanating from the crystals creating fissures and floating shards of glowing rock. Tina led the way, her movements precise as she navigated the hazards. Ned followed closely, his instincts honed from years of piloting keeping him steady. "This place is alive," Ned said, glancing at a nearby shard that pulsed faintly as they passed. Tina nodded. "The crystals are part of an ancient ecosystem. They respond to life, drawing energy from those who connect with them." "So, they're like batteries?" Ned asked. Tina tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "In a sense, but their power is far more complex and dangerous if misused." As they climbed a ridge overlooking the central spire, Tina suddenly froze. Her luminous eyes narrowed as she scanned the horizon. "What is it?" Ned asked, his grip tightening on his weapon. "They're here," Tina whispered, her glow intensifying. "The hunters have found us." The hunters descended swiftly, their dark ships cutting through the alien sky like blades. Drones swarmed ahead, scanning the area with beams of light that sliced through the haze. Ned and Tina took cover behind a cluster of crystal formations, the faint hum of energy vibrating through the ground beneath them. "Can we use the crystals?" Ned asked, his voice low. Tina shook her head. "Not yet. We need to reach the central spire to activate the network. These smaller nodes won't be enough." Ned peeked out from their cover, spotting the hunters deploying ground forces. "Then we've got to keep moving." They darted from cover to cover, dodging the drone's beams and evading the hunters' advanced weaponry. Ned's connection to the crystals began to manifest more strongly, his reflexes sharpening as he fought off the attackers with uncanny precision. Tina used the crystals around them to create barriers and disorient the hunters, her connection to the network amplifying her abilities. Despite their efforts, the enemy pressed closer, their sheer numbers threatening to overwhelm them. "We can't keep this up," Ned shouted, as a blast from a hunter's weapon struck dangerously close to their position. Tina's gaze hardened. "Then we don't fight. We run." Reaching the central spire was like stepping into another world. The massive crystal towered over them, its surface alive with swirling light. The energy emanating from it was almost overwhelming. filling the air with a low, resonant hum. Tina approached the spire, her hands glowing as she placed them on its surface. The crystal responded immediately, its light intensifying as it connected with her energy. "This is it," she said, her voice steady. "The network's core." Ned stepped closer, the energy pulling at him like a magnet. "What do we do?" "You must join me," Tina said, turning to him. "Together, we can synchronize the energy and activate the network." Ned hesitated, the weight of the moment settling over him. "And if we don't?" Tina's expression was solemn. "The hunters will take control of the crystals. They will use their power to destroy and dominate. There will be no stopping them." Ned nodded, determination hardening his features. "Then let's do this." The return to the farm was bittersweet. Though the planet was safe for now, the battle had left scars on both the land and its protectors. Ned walked through the fields, now dotted with faintly glowing crystal shards that had sprouted during the network's activation. Tina followed, her gaze distant as she processed the magnitude of what they had achieved and what still lay ahead. "So," Ned said, breaking the silence as they reached the porch, "what's next? You said the network connects to other worlds. Does that mean we've got more planets to save?" Tina hesitated, her silver eyes meeting his. "The network is stable here, but its signals are reaching other nodes, some of which may already be under attack. The hunters are not just after this planet, they are targeting the entire system." Ned leaned against the porch railing, his weathered face thoughtful. "Sounds like we're in for the long haul." Tina stepped closer, her voice soft but resolute. "You don't have to do this, Ned. This fight is not yours to bear." He turned to her, his expression firm. "It became my fight the moment I saved you. I'm not backing out now." A faint smile touched her lips. "Then we will stand together, as guardians." Over the next few days, Lyrian shared their knowledge of the Crystal Network and the Hunters' broader plans. The Hunters, Lyrian explained, were part of a faction seeking to weaponize the network's energy, using it to dominate entire star systems. "Their reach is vast," Lyrian said during one of their strategy meetings. "But so is the network's potential. With enough nodes activated and enough guardians working together, we can push them back." Tina absorbed the information with a mix of determination and concern. "And what happens if the hunters succeed in disrupting another node?" "The entire system will destabilize," Lyrian replied, "and the damage will not be limited to the network. Planets connected to the nodes could suffer catastrophic consequences." Ned leaned back in his chair, his jaw tightening. "So it's not just about stopping them. It's about making sure this whole thing doesn't come crashing down." "Precisely," Lyrian said. Despite the weight of the situation, the growing alliance brought a sense of hope. More ships began to arrive, carrying other guardians and allies who had responded to the network's call. The farm, once a quiet sanctuary, transformed into a bustling hub of activity. As the preparations continued, Ned and Tina found themselves spending more time together, their bond deepening with each shared challenge. Though their connection was forged by circumstance, it had grown into something far stronger, a partnership that neither could imagine living without. One evening, as they stood beneath the stars, Tina turned to Ned, her expression thoughtful. "You've given up so much for this fight. Do you ever wish you could go back to your old life?" Ned shook his head, a faint smile playing on his lips. "That life was just passing the time. This feels like it matters." Tina's gaze softened. "It does, and so do you." Before either of them could say more, Lyrian approached, their expression serious. "The hunters are mobilizing. We've detected activity near the next node." Tina straightened, her silver eyes gleaming with resolve. "Then it's time." Ned adjusted the straps on his pack, his shotgun slung over his shoulder. "Let's go save another planet." The ship lifted off at dawn, its sleek form cutting through the atmosphere as it carried Ned, Tina, and their growing alliance toward the next battle. As they left the farm behind, Ned couldn't help but glance back at the fields that had become a symbol of hope. "This isn't goodbye," Tina said, her voice gentle. "The farm will always be here, and so will we." Ned nodded, his grip tightening on the railing as the ship ascended. "Yeah, but it feels like the start of something bigger." Tina placed a hand on his arm, her touch warm and reassuring. Because it is. As the stars stretched out before them, the bond between Ned and Tina remained unshakable, a beacon of strength in the face of the unknown. Together they would protect the Crystal Network, defending not just their world, but countless others. For they were no longer just a farmer and a researcher. They were guardians, united by purpose and guided by love. And as the galaxy awaited its next challenge, they stood ready to face it, together. The ship carrying Ned, Tina, and their allies hurtled through the vastness of space, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside, the tension was palpable as the crew prepared for their arrival at the next crystal node, a planet called Arthas, known for its dense forests and volatile atmosphere. Lyrian briefed the group as they approached. The hunters have already begun their assault on Arthas. The crystal node there is deeply embedded within the planet's core. If they succeed in destabilizing it, the destruction will extend far beyond this system. Ned crossed his arms, his rugged face set with determination. What's our plan? Tina stepped forward, her luminous skin glowing faintly in the dim light. We split into teams. One group will secure the surface while another descends into the core to protect the crystal directly. And I'm guessing we're the ones going down there, Ned said with a smirk. Tina nodded. Your bond with the crystals makes you uniquely suited for this. The energy in the core will be unstable. It may even overwhelm others, but together, we can stabilize it. Ned glanced at her, his confidence steady. Let's get it done. Arthas was a planet of extremes. Its forests were dense with towering trees that glowed faintly in the darkness, their leaves shimmering with bioluminescence. The air was thick and humid, carrying the faint scent of sulfur from volcanic vents scattered across the terrain. As Ned, Tina, and their team approached the entrance to the core, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The distant hum of the crystal's energy was overlaid with the sharp mechanical sounds of the hunter's machinery. We're running out of time, Tina said, her voice tense. They're already drilling into the core. The team descended into the planet, navigating narrow tunnels lit by the faint glow of the crystal veins running through the rock. As they neared the core, the energy grew more intense, vibrating through the air and making it difficult to breathe. Ned placed a steadying hand on Tina's shoulder. You okay? She nodded, though her glow flickered faintly. The energy is strong here, but we can manage it. When they reached the core chamber, the sight took Ned's breath away. The central crystal was massive, its surface fractured and pulsing erratically. Around it, hunters worked tirelessly to deploy devices that emitted destabilizing energy waves. We need to stop them now, Tina said, her voice firm. The battle in the core chamber was unlike anything Ned had faced before. The hunters, armed with advanced weaponry designed to disrupt the crystals, fought with precision and ferocity. But Ned and Tina moved as one, their bond allowing them to anticipate each other's movements. Tina used the crystal's energy to create shields and disrupt the hunters' devices, while Ned relied on his honed instincts and raw determination to hold the line. Their team provided support, but it was clear that the true power lay in the connection between Ned and Tina. As the battle raged, the central crystal began to pulse more erratically, its fractures deepening. Tina placed her hands on its surface, her glow intensifying as she tried to stabilize it. I need your help, she called to Ned. He joined her, placing his hands beside hers. The surge of energy that followed was overwhelming, but he held steady, focusing on their bond. Together, they channeled the crystal's power, their combined strength filling the chamber with blinding light. The hunters faltered, their equipment failing as the crystal's energy overwhelmed them. One by one they retreated, their defeat marked by the soft hum of the crystal stabilizing. As the chamber quieted, the crystal's glow became steady and soothing. Tina exhaled, her shoulders relaxing as she turned to Ned. You did it, she said softly. We did it, he replied, his voice equally quiet. Before they could say more, a figure emerged from the shadows, a being with crystalline skin and eyes that glowed faintly. They bowed their head in gratitude. I am Rylus, the figure said, a guardian of this node. You have saved Arthas, and for that I am in your debt. Lyrian stepped forward, their expression thoughtful. We could use your help, Rylus. The hunters are targeting nodes across the galaxy. Rylus nodded. I will join you. Together, we can protect the network. The ship carrying Ned, Tina, and their allies hurtled through the vastness of space, its hull gleaming under the light of distant stars. Inside, the tension was palpable as the crew prepared for their arrival at the next crystal node, a planet called Arthas, known for its dense forests and volatile atmosphere. Lyrian briefed the group as they approached. The hunters have already begun their assault on Arthas. The crystal node there is deeply embedded within the planet's core. If they succeed in destabilizing it, the destruction will extend far beyond this system. Ned crossed his arms, his rugged face set with determination. What's our plan? Tina stepped forward, her luminous skin glowing faintly in the dim light. We split into teams. One group will secure the surface while another descends into the core to protect the crystal directly. And I'm guessing we're the ones going down there, Ned said with a smirk. Tina nodded. Your bond with the crystals makes you uniquely suited for this. The energy in the core will be unstable. It may even overwhelm others. But together, we can stabilize it. Ned glanced at her, his confidence steady. Let's get it done. Arthas was a planet of extremes. Its forests were dense with towering trees that glowed faintly in the darkness, their leaves shimmering with bioluminescence. The air was thick and humid, carrying the faint scent of sulfur from volcanic vents scattered across the terrain. As Ned, Tina, and their team approached the entrance to the core, the ground trembled beneath their feet. The distant hum of the crystal's energy was overlaid with the sharp, mechanical sounds of the hunter's machinery. We're running out of time, Tina said, her voice tense. They're already drilling into the core. The team descended into the planet, navigating narrow tunnels lit by the faint glow of the crystal veins running through the rock. As they neared the core, the energy grew more intense, vibrating through the air and making it difficult to breathe. Ned placed a steadying hand on Tina's shoulder. You okay? She nodded, though her glow flickered faintly. The energy is strong here, but we can manage it. When they reached the core chamber, the sight took Ned's breath away. The central crystal was massive, its surface fractured and pulsing erratically. Around it, hunters worked tirelessly to deploy devices that emitted destabilizing energy waves. We need to stop them now, Tina said, her voice firm. The battle in the core chamber was unlike anything Ned had faced before. The hunters, armed with advanced weaponry designed to disrupt the crystals, fought with precision and ferocity. But Ned and Tina moved as one, their bond allowing them to anticipate each other's movements. Tina used the crystal's energy to create shields and disrupt the hunters' devices, while Ned relied on his honed instincts and raw determination to hold the line. Their team provided support, but it was clear that the true power lay in the connection between Ned and Tina. As the battle raged, the central crystal began to pulse more erratically, its fractures deepening. Tina placed her hands on its surface, her glow intensifying as she tried to stabilize it. I need your help, she called to Ned. He joined her, placing his hands beside hers. The surge of energy that followed was overwhelming, but he held steady, focusing on their bond. Together, they channeled the crystal's power, their combined strength filling the chamber with blinding light. The hunters faltered, their equipment failing as the crystal's energy overwhelmed them. One by one they retreated, their defeat marked by the soft hum of the crystal stabilizing. As the chamber quieted, the crystal's glow became steady and soothing. Tina exhaled, her shoulders relaxing as she turned to Ned. You did it, she said softly. We did it, he replied, his voice equally quiet. Before they could say more, a figure emerged from the shadows, a being with crystalline skin and eyes that glowed faintly. They bowed their head in gratitude. I am Rylus, the figure said, a guardian of this node. You have saved Arthas, and for that, I am in your debt. Lyrian stepped forward, their expression thoughtful. We could use your help, Rylus. The hunters are targeting nodes across the galaxy. Rylus nodded. I will join you. Together we can protect the network. The Vanguard Horizon, now carrying Ned, Tina, and their growing alliance, cruised through hyperspace. The ship was abuzz with activity as guardians from various nodes exchanged knowledge and strategies. Each stop they made brought new allies and new stories of resistance against the hunters. The crystal network, though vast, was still fragile, and every victory felt like a small but critical step forward. Tina worked tirelessly in the ship's energy lab, her connection to the crystals deepening with each mission. Ned, meanwhile, had become a steady presence among the crew, his practical insights and unshakable determination earning him respect, even among the most seasoned Guardians. One day, as he was running a maintenance check on the ship's shielding system, Tina appeared beside him, her glow soft but warm. "The network has sent another signal," she said, holding a crystalline tablet that pulsed faintly in her hands. "It's coming from a node far beyond the galaxy's outer rim." Ned straightened, wiping his hands on a rag. "Another planet in trouble?" "Worse," Tina said, her tone grave. "This signal isn't from a node. It's from a fragment, a broken piece of the network. If the hunters have found it, they may already be trying to exploit it." Ned set the rag aside, his expression hardening. "Then we don't wait. Let's move." The fragment's location was on a desolate moon orbiting a dying star. The surface was barren, the air thin and cold, but the energy emanating from beneath the ground was unmistakable. The team disembarked cautiously, their movements careful as they scanned for signs of the hunters. "This place is different," Tina murmured, her hands glowing faintly as she reached out to the fragment's energy. "The crystal here is fractured, its power unstable." Lyrian, who had taken point, nodded. "We'll need to be careful. If the hunters trigger a surge, the entire moon could collapse." The team descended into a cavern where the fragment rested. It was smaller than the nodes they had encountered before, its surface cracked and flickering with uneven light. Hunters had already set up equipment around it, their machines drilling into the crystal's core. "They're trying to siphon the energy," Tina said, her voice filled with urgency. "If they succeed, it could destabilize not just this fragment, but every connected node." Ned gripped his weapon, his jaw set. "Then we stop them, same as before." As the battle began, the hunters fought with a desperation that suggested they knew the stakes. Their machines emitted waves of energy that disrupted the fragment's delicate balance, sending tremors through the cavern. Ned and Tina moved in perfect harmony, their bond allowing them to anticipate each other's actions. Tina directed the fragment's energy to create shields and disrupt the hunters' equipment, while Ned held the line with a mix of raw strength and strategic precision. In the midst of the chaos, a new figure emerged, an ancient guardian of the fragment, their crystalline form fractured but still radiating immense power. The guardian's voice echoed through the cavern, a deep, resonant sound that seemed to come from the fragment itself. "You dare to desecrate this place?" the guardian roared, turning its attention to the hunters. With a wave of its hand, it sent a surge of energy that toppled their machines and scattered their forces. The hunters, overwhelmed by the combined might of the guardian and the team, retreated, their ships vanishing into the dark sky. Back aboard the Vanguard horizon, the team analyzed data recovered from the hunters' equipment. What they found was alarming. "They're targeting a central node," Lyrian said, their expression grim. "If they succeed in destabilizing it, the entire network could collapse." Tina's glow dimmed slightly. "Which node?" "The Nexus," Ayla said, their voice heavy. "The heart of the entire network. If the hunters reach it..." Ned clenched his fists. "Then we make sure they don't." The team worked tirelessly, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Messages were sent across the network, calling on every guardian and ally to converge at the Nexus. It was clear that this would be their greatest battle yet. As the ship approached the Nexus, the team stood together on the observation deck. The Nexus was a sight to behold. A massive crystal spire that glowed with a light so intense it seemed to touch every corner of the galaxy. Ned placed a hand on Tina's shoulder, his voice steady. "You ready for this?" She turned to him, her silver eyes filled with determination. "With you by my side, always." The ship descended, joining the growing fleet of Guardians, preparing for the fight of their lives. As the Nexus pulsed with energy, the bond between Ned and Tina deepened, their connection a beacon of hope in the face of the galaxy's greatest threat. The battle for the Nexus and the future of the Crystal Network was about to begin. The fleet assembled near the Nexus was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Ships of all sizes and origins converged, their crews united by a singular purpose: to protect the heart of the crystal network. The Nexus itself glowed brighter than ever, its energy resonating through the vast expanse of space, a beacon of hope and a target for destruction. Ned, Tina, and the rest of the team stood in the Vanguard Horizons command center, reviewing the final battle plans. The hunters were already on the move, their fleet closing in fast. "This is it," Lyrian said, their voice calm but resolute. "The Nexus is the key to the entire network. If we lose it, the hunters win." Tina stepped forward, her silver eyes shining. "We won't lose. The Nexus will respond to the bond we've cultivated. Together, we can protect it." Ned nodded, his grip tightening on his weapon. "Let's give 'em hell." The battle began with a ferocity that shook the stars. The hunters' fleet launched wave after wave of attacks, their weapons designed to disrupt the Nexus's energy field. Guardians from across the galaxy fought back, their ships darting through the chaos, using the network's energy to amplify their defenses and strikes. On the ground, near the base of the Nexus, Ned and Tina led a team to protect the crystal directly. The hunters had deployed ground forces, their machines tearing into the terrain as they attempted to destabilize the node. Tina directed waves of energy to shield the Nexus, her connection to the crystal stronger than ever. Beside her, Ned fought with unmatched precision, the bond between them guiding his every move. Together, they were unstoppable. As the battle reached its peak, the Nexus began to pulse erratically. Tina's glow brightened, her voice urgent. "The Hunter's disruptors are interfering with the crystal. If we don't stop them now, the entire network will collapse." Ned scanned the battlefield, his sharp eyes locking onto a massive device the hunters had deployed. "That must be it. Cover me." Before Tina could protest, Ned charged toward the disruptor, his movements swift and purposeful. Tina followed, using the Nexus's energy to shield him from the hunter's fire. They reached the device together, their bond amplifying the energy around them. Placing their hands on the disruptor, they channeled the Nexus's power directly into it. The machine sparked and groaned under the strain before exploding in a blinding flash of light. The hunters' forces faltered, their ships retreating as the Nexus's energy stabilized. The battlefield fell silent, the light of the Nexus shining brighter than ever. With the hunters defeated, the Nexus began to hum with a soothing resonance. The energy spread across the network, stabilizing nodes and restoring the balance that had been disrupted. Ned and Tina stood at the base of the Nexus, their hands still resting on its surface. The bond between them was stronger than ever, their connection to the crystal unshakable. "We did it," Ned said, his voice filled with quiet relief. Tina turned to him, her silver eyes soft. "No, Ned. We did more than that. We saved the galaxy." Around them, the Guardians gathered, their expressions a mix of awe and gratitude. Ayla stepped forward, their fractured form glowing faintly. "The network owes its survival to you both. You are more than Guardians. You are its heart." Ned chuckled, his rugged face breaking into a grin. "Not bad for a farmer and a researcher, huh?" Tina smiled, her hand resting on his. "Not bad at all." The Nexus stood as a beacon of hope, its light reaching across the galaxy to every connected node. The hunters had been driven back, their plans thwarted, but the work of the Guardians was far from over. The network was vast, its connections fragile, and its protection required constant vigilance. Ned and Tina returned to the Vanguard Horizon, now a flagship of the Guardians' fleet. Their bond, forged in the fires of battle, had become a symbol of what the network stood for: unity, resilience, and connection. As the ship sailed through the stars, Ned leaned against the observation deck's railing, watching the glowing expanse of the galaxy. "You ever think about how far we've come, Mark?" he asked, glancing at Tina. She stood beside him, her silver hair shimmering in the starlight. "Every day, and I wouldn't trade it for anything." Ned smiled, his hand brushing hers. "Neither would I." As the stars stretched endlessly before them, the Guardians prepared for the challenges ahead. Together, they would protect the crystal network, ensuring its light continued to shine for generations to come. For Ned and Tina, their journey was far from over. It was only just beginning.